We are so dreadfully stuck with the physical level of life that we rarely consider the possibility that there is something higher than human beings in the physical self, and buildings and food and objects that we desire. It takes a lot of sacrifice of the habitual to even begin to suspect the existence of this other world, which is not physical at all, but which is spiritual, which is psychological, which is invisible, and which, by the way, rules the physical. Now, just maybe already you suspect, or should suspect, that you have things backward. Look at the enormous importance, the overwhelming value that you put on something you can see with your eyes and hear with your ears. You fall in love with that human being and that automobile and that house and that vacation. It is completely overwhelming. And then you hear the pretty music or the voice of someone that you think has value to you. And this invisible spiritual world that we're talking about vanishes and never appears again, even if it appeared briefly at some time in your life. Now, we have talked about this before, but I want to go into a very special phase of it. We have talked a good deal about higher forces, about healing spirits, about good ideas, of invisible guides that can take over our lives and put us on the right path after we've fought it for about 20 years. But tonight, I want to talk to you about another area of this invisible world which deserves equal attention as the positive side of it. And I'm going to talk about criminality, about crimes. Well, where do you think a burglar gets the idea to break into a house and steal and wreck? Where do you think a politician finally gets into wrecking a whole country with a war or with a riot? Where do you think it all starts? You know very well it doesn't start with the physical, because you know that the physical, the ability to raise your arms or to shoot a gun or to hurt someone, you know that starts somewhere inside the human being and then activates the physical. A gun in itself has no life in itself, does it? It takes a human being to pick it up and shoot someone else. Now, in the study of human criminality, of human beings who have no decency or no conscience, which is practically every human being, practically everyone, all the people going by in those cars, for example. In studying that, we run into a number of problems. And I've already mentioned one of them to you, which is it's very easy for us to sit back and identify John Wilkes Booth or a Jack the Ripper or a political criminal like Hitler or Stalin or Tojo. We can look out with our physical eyes and say, yes, that's right, this is a terrible place to live in. We have all these criminals, and you read about them in the paper, people who kidnap and assault. People who really are simply animals. All they have is a physical form. Now I want to tell you a type of criminality which words can never describe. It is so vast, and it has been committed so long and so fierce. Since man appeared on earth, it has been going on so overwhelmingly that no one sees it. And even after I explain it to you, you're not going to see it. It is a crime that everyone committed against you, us. All of you here have been the victim of it all the time, from the day of your birth practically. Now, the other part of that is that you yourself do exactly the same thing, you commit the same crime, and you don't see that either. There's no way you can see it, the level that you operate on today. You know, as I talk to you, I am very aware of how little of what I'm saying to you gets through. I don't just see people out there, I see walls. I see people who really think that they're understanding what I'm talking about, and you are not. And I'll prove it to you in just a few seconds. When I identify very clearly this crime, this monstrosity, and I wish I could think of a stronger word, you will hear the words, and that's just about as far as it will go. The crime, that invisible crime, never mind the Hitlers and the Jack the Rippers. Pay attention to what's happening to you. It's your life. What happened to you is that you were permitted to get away with it. That's it. You were permitted to get away with being rude. You were permitted to get away with being malicious, with being greedy, with being egotistical, self-centered. Everyone permitted you to get away with it, and that's why your life is the wreck that it is right now. Well, of course, what did you expect from a world like this? What did you expect? What else did you expect to happen in that home you were brought up in? What else did you expect in that school, those series of schools you attended? What did you expect to happen in the churches you went to and the religious groups, classes you went to? Everyone you met let you get away with your bad behavior. Your bad behavior being your state, your level, which you don't even know you have. Well, of course they let you get away with it because, first of all, they gave permission to themselves to be that evil. I'm talking about evil. And if you don't know what evil is, I'll explain it to you very simply. Evil is something that belongs to you, your old nature, something that you prefer to the light. And if you don't straighten out, I'll tell you, I'm a perfect prophet. I'll tell you exactly what's going to happen to you. That evil is going to continue to wrench you and wreck you. Because you won't put a stop to it right now. And you can put a stop to it right now. Right here in this meeting, you can rise up with the right kind of spiritual fierceness. You can say, I don't care what those people did in the past toward me. And I know what they did, and you do know what they did. Those fiends, look what they did to you when you were a 3- and 4-year-old girl or boy. Only a monster would treat you the way they treated you, and I don't care if they call themselves mom and pop, and uncle and grandma. Well, didn't it happen to you? What are you like tonight? Of course it happened to you. You can start right now. You can get this fierceness where you say, I'm not going to let myself get away with it one more day. I don't understand exactly how to do it, but I'm going to start. And I am not let go. I'm not going to let myself be defeated by those people of 30 years ago, of 30 minutes ago. I'm going to rise up and I'm going to claim what has been handed to me, but I haven't taken it yet. I'm going to claim something else, which is the right, listen to this, to cancel out not 10%, not 50%, but 100% of the damage that's been done to me. Oh, why do you think you are in so much agony? Why do you think you go around explaining yourself? Why are you so afraid of this world? Because you haven't risen up. Because you up to this point haven't decided to treat yourself better than your parents did, than your so-called friends did, than your educators did, than your religious hypocrites did. So where do you come off complaining? Because you don't want to rise up. You have found, unfortunately for you, disastrously for you, you have decided to take the defeat that they handed on to you, decided to not correct yourself, to not grow, because you are utterly, utterly lazy. Now look, I've described you tonight. I've told you what's happened to you. I've also told you that it is your right kind of responsibility to absorb, to ponder so deeply that you understand the only way to escape the pain is to start where you are tonight and no longer tolerate your own sick behavior. How pathetic and how stupid that you choose to believe everyone who has deceived you in the past instead of believing God Almighty, and that is precisely what you have done. There is no excuse for you remaining as you are, and if you ever again complain about anything, I don't care what it is, you are lying, and you will pay the price for that. Now, never mind the fact that all those wretched cowards out there, all your relatives, for example, never mind that they have chosen the way of defeat and cowardice. Don't you dare ever again take as an excuse, as a 5-year-old kid will do, that they are not going to change, so why should I? 1 million people living in the dry, dusty desert, and you see the bridge over to the beautiful land, and there it is with all the green trees and the pretty lakes, and you look back and you say, because they're not going to cross, I'm not going to. You are insane, and you don't know it. So that's one kind of criminality in which you have refused to throw off the chains that have been put around you, that you use anything for an excuse, that you want to keep your eyes closed and drift through life. But I want you to know from now on Anytime you complain, you are a liar. No complaints are justified, because if you have never in your life heard about the path out that takes you out of yourself, you have heard it tonight. See, some of you, I know you'll go out of here and you'll think about it a little bit out of the corner of your mind, and then you'll let the world take away the seed of truth that you've been given tonight. But see, you don't know how compassionate truth is. You don't know how it'll give you a chance all the way down until you drift out of sight in that canoe drifting down the stream. Truth will give you every last chance. And maybe some of you who don't want this truth because you're so sick, which you are. If you hate truth, you're sick, period. Maybe a month from now or 5 years from now, you'll catch yourself in a complaint, and you'll see the agony of being in complaint. And maybe you'll remember some of the things you heard here tonight. And then when the pain gets too bad, come back. So your pain isn't bad enough now. You can always push it away with your thoughts of the baseball game coming on, or your dinner, or whatever you happen to use for an escape from seeing the wretched life that you live. So we've covered criminality on the outside a little bit, starting with physical criminals, and worked our way inward. Now we can take another crime, which is inside all human beings. And you're going to have to listen with a special care so that you don't slip off the tightrope on either side of it. A crime has been committed by other people on you, and you have permitted it to continue to be permitted. You're committed it against yourself. And what I'm going to tell you, you can stop doing it against yourself. You can stop putting yourself in your own prison. You now believe, go real slow on this now, I'll even slow down myself so we don't miss it. You now believe that you must live your own life. You now believe that you have a responsibility for your own life. Now, let's break into that before we go any further and see what is happening. When you say, I am responsible for my own life, you are saying that from thought, from your intellect, and you are thinking that there is an individual person there, apart from everyone else on earth, that you have to take care of. You think that you, of yourself, have to think how to get ahead in this world, how to have other people think well of you, how to defeat enemies. These are all going through your mind. And it is based on the criminal thought that you do have a separate self, a separate individuality, which you must take care of. Now, because you have that, you're a horrible human being. Because you're a desperate human being. That is an illusion that you have this separate self. But believing in the illusion, you are desperate, and you think that anything you do is justified, including murdering 1 million people. You think it doesn't happen. You don't know what goes on in the mind of human beings. One super devil does this, murders 1 million human beings for his own egotistical purposes. One human being does it, and millions of other human beings don't have the courage or the decency to say, stop. You are not going to lead this nation into a war. You are not going to pass that stupid law so that you can have more power and restrict other people. You are not going to hurt that other human being. You are not going to get away with it. Where are you going to find one man who will say that? Just one. This world is a pack of miserable cowards. And And you live the results of that cowardice. See, you have no spirituality at all. All you have is yourself. Your miserable, wretched little self, which you're trying to hang on to. And because this is all you have, you don't indeed have any spirituality at all, which is the only thing that can rescue you. I'm not talking about stupid organized religion. I'm not talking about all these horrible hypocrites who sing about God and sing hymns and have viciousness in their hearts. Let them go. You have something better to do with your life than to be a hypocrite any longer in your own way. I mentioned the word tightrope a little earlier. We can go into that a little bit. Here's a man acrobat walking a tightrope, and he forgets himself. He loses his balance, loses his balance, and he falls down. Falls down to the left side first time. And you run over and you pick him up. And you say, "Here, can I help you?" And he looks around, he doesn't know where he is. And you, understanding that he's hurt himself and he's in a daze, you say, "You just fell off the tightrope." He's in a daze. He says, "I didn't fall off a tightrope. What are you talking about?" Eventually he gets up there again, he walks down. This time he falls off to the right, he falls down on the ground, hurts himself. You go over and pick him up and say, "You fell off the tightrope." He says, "I didn't fall off the tightrope." I've described human beings. Is there one of you here tonight in this room who, when truth comes to you and says, "Sir, miss, do you know that you fell off a tightrope and you hurt yourself? You fell off the path toward the other side. Do you know that you fell down? If so, don't you get up and continue on your journey?" He says, "I didn't fall off any tightrope." You know what you're saying? You're saying, "There's nothing wrong with me. I'm not getting hurt. I'm not hurt at all. My life is exciting. I'm running for office tomorrow. And I'm going on strike to double my pay. That is what I call exciting. What are you talking about?" I'm afraid that you've visited the lunatic asylum so often that you've taken on its ways. I'm afraid you've walked in it so much that you have begun to unconsciously imitate the men and women inside it, walking around muttering to themselves, dressing up in the uniform of a general or of a famous actress. I want you to know that in this room, in this whole building, wherever a meeting is being held, effective as of now, the pure truth will be told to you. I will tell you furthermore, ladies and gentlemen, that you are not going to get away with it anymore. You're going to be told that you've fallen off the tightrope and banged your head. You're going to be told that you're delirious and that you don't know what you're talking about, and you never have, by the way. You're going to be told that you either want the truth or you want falsehood. You either want rescue from yourself or you want to go deeper into your wretched, hateful life. I can think of nothing. And can you, by the way, can you think of anything more marvelous than the truth that won't let us get away with it anymore? Haven't you gone far enough? When are you going to stop? How about right now? How about pondering all these things? You don't have to have courage because you don't have any. You don't have to be wise because you're not wise. You are stupid. To be in your state that you are in here tonight is total stupidity. And I don't care how many times the imposter inside of you says that that is wrong, that you are truly wise. You're never going to convince yourself of it. As a matter of fact, every time you try to, you make your situation worse. So what you have to do is yield. Imagine a number of people wanting to travel across the dry country to get to the pretty country beyond, and they're given all the necessary things for traveling. They're given a map, they're given a compass, they're told about the weather, and so they start out. They're told if they use what they have, they can develop and learn how to travel and come to a successful conclusion, which will bring them to another land. This is us. And so they start out and they look at the compass a little bit and they look at the map, but there's something very defective about these men and women. They're egotists. They are stupid. They have no sense at all. They are shallow as a platter. They know nothing about life, and they start down across the desert to reach the pretty country, and after a while they look at the compass and they toss it away. And they look at the map a little bit, and they toss the map aside. They say, as people have said to the truth throughout the centuries, I don't need you, I can do it all by myself. I can do it all alone. See, this is egotism talking. This is insanity at its worst talking. And all they have to do, the people who threw away the maps and the compass, all they have to do is travel just a few more miles before the terror begins to grip them. And the more it grips them, the more it makes them afraid, the more they have to insist that they're not afraid until the point comes that it's too late for them to ever have the logical, sensible, spiritual thought, I'd better go back and get that compass I threw away. It can no longer occur to such human beings that they've made a dreadful mistake, and therefore they can't go back. Most human beings on earth have gone far beyond the point where they can come back to pick up the compass and start to get the accurate directions of truth itself, because their own mind has become so hardened. They are so hardened. God help them. They are so hardened in sneering at truth that nothing can get through. Effective tonight in this new building, in this new meeting place, we're going to be very, very pure in the presentation of that truth, so that only those who can recognize that they're wandering, who know that they're sick in their hearts and in their mind, only those who realize their sickness can be helped. They're the only ones who can ever be helped, because the others, with their little stupid religious rituals and with their plans for the future, if they only knew it, they could have it all now. So isn't it an absolute delight? Doesn't it make you want to smile and just be naturally, spontaneously happy to know that what we need is going to be supplied right here in this room several times a week? All we have to do is come. All we have to do is listen. All we have to do is yield. You see, I told you, you don't have any strength. You don't have any wisdom. But you can have the starting point of knowing that you don't have these things. And when you sit here and be receptive to it, truth will begin to fill you with what you really need. And you'll understand for the first time in your life what it means. Oh, what it beautifully means to have a wisdom that is not your own. Any wisdom of your own is disastrous, destructive stupidity, and you had better see that. God will have a chance with you if you'll see that. And he'll fill you with his wisdom. And very, very quietly and powerfully, in a new meaning of the word powerfully, and very, very quietly, you'll know what it means to live a spiritual life. You will understand what it means that you don't have to make decisions because there's no ego there to make destructive and tearing apart decisions anymore. You'll know what it means to lead a very easy, totally victorious life. And you'll understand that this victory was indeed won millions of years ago. All you have to do is start to take it right now. What a vast subject we're going to discuss tonight. It covers the entire world, going back and forth over the centuries and over lives. It is a never-ending subject for investigation and for astonishment, and in very rare cases for correction. I'm talking about the subject of human stupidity. Agreed that we could talk about that forever? Well, that's exactly what the world does, is talk about it. And the chief thing they talk about is the stupidity of another nation, the evil of another country, the stupidity of a spouse, of a family member, the stupidity of the boss. And of course, the person condemning the stupid person is a perfectly innocent human being in his own eyes, which is stupidity again. Now, stupidity is bad because it prevents you from being intelligent. Stupidity is so overwhelming, it occupies the human mind so completely that when something intelligent and true and gracious comes along, a stupid mind rejects it as being unlike itself and therefore stupid. A stupid mind calls intelligence stupidity. Again, catch that phrase, because what it sees is something that is not like its own self. And having labeled it stupidity, having labeled itself as intelligence, when true intelligence comes along, it has no choice but to lash out against it, push it away, and to scorn it. So let's look very carefully tonight at the evidences of stupidity. And maybe we will be so astonished at how it has taken us over that we can begin to get a glimmer of intelligence and say, stupidity, ignorance, plain old dumbness is bad for my life. If you can do that, if you can connect ignorance with yourself, intelligence will do the rest for you, because you can't do it for yourself. See, you can't become intelligent. You can only know and begin to have a disdain, a spiritual disdain for stupidity. And when you have this disdain for it, want to push it away, that is the invitation to intelligence to come in. You don't do a thing. But look how Do you want to become spiritually intelligent? That means you want to be really happy. All you have to do is to know that you're stupid. And the evidence is right there. Remember we talked so much about the man walking down the street, leading an elephant? And he meets everybody and he says, see this elephant? And they say, what elephant? He goes to the next man, see this elephant? They say, what elephant? We don't see what we don't want to see. We push away anything that seems to be a threat to us. There was a story written about this is a true story as I understand it, about a detective in France some years ago who was assigned to a certain case, and he collected the evidence on it. And as it began to collect, he began to get nervous. And it turned out, to make it very short, turned out that he had been assigned to solve a crime that he himself had committed in some kind of a dazed state, some kind of a wrong state. But here it was right in front of him, and he didn't want to see it for the very same reason that we as human beings don't want to see where we're going wrong. When the evidence of our own wrongness gets close, we begin to push it away. We begin to deny that it's evidence because we're so fearful it's going to lead to me, lead to you as the criminal. Why don't you let it happen? Why don't you let yourself get caught? Did you ever consider that? As a matter of fact, you are caught all day long, but you don't know it. The evidence that you have no life of your own is overwhelming, and you refuse to see that. Which leads us to another subject. This is going to be very interesting. Listen to it. Think of the phrase, delusion of control. Huh? Just walk down the street of any town, walk into any home, walk into any business office, and ask anyone you meet, are you in control of your life? And he will tell an enormous lie. He will say, yes, of course I am. And you ask for an explanation. No, sure he has an explanation. What do you mean I'm in control of my life? Of course I am. I'm paying off the mortgage of my home. I take care of my wife and family. I pay my bills. I have plans for future promotion in my work. He can give you 1,000 reasons why he has control of his life. See, remember we've discussed many times, people have the slightest notion of the existence of an interior life. So you talk to them about these things, then they always put them on the outside. Of course I have control of my life. I know what to do with my money. I know how to save. I know how to influence customers to buy my product. That is what he calls control, and see how he or she evades the problem. The problem is, ladies and gentlemen, you are a human being here on earth to do more than pay your bills or have a wife or husband or raise your children. For heaven's sake, what are your values? Well, I know why. To you, very unfortunately, all that exists is subscribing to the new guide for entertainment in town, the new television log, looking at the sports on television. See, human beings have no sense of eternity because they have taken time as eternity, which is why absolute terror sets in to the average human being, to all human beings. When one of his little petty toys slips out of his hands and falls down and breaks, and he cries. How many of you listening to me right now are counting on something to get you through the next day, every single one of you? You've got your toys, haven't you? These are your values. These are what want to get you by. This is what is called utter, complete stupidity, because you're not going to have the higher rewards you could have. Then you say, what higher rewards? Of course you don't know about them, and you never will, unless you take the right steps toward them. I've given you the first right step. See yourself as you are. The delusion of being in control and command of your life. Well, let's see. As you were listening to me now, select one thing. You can do it right while I'm talking. Select one thing that bothers you. You got it? What is it? What are you worried about? Some human relationship, your health. What are you worried about? Employment, whatever. All right? This one thing bothers you. All right? Now, I want you to take control of it, and I want you to dismiss it right this very moment and get it out of your life. Well, yes or no, are you in control of that? Do you know the answer to that? Take another one. Take a worry. Take a worry that you've got that's been nagging you for years, or you're the new one you picked up today. I instruct you to drop that worry right now. Be in control of it. Be higher than it is. Let it go so that effective as of right now, it doesn't run madly through your mind anymore. All right? Oh, I see. Then you are not in control of your own life. Now stop right there. Stop right there. If you go on, you will lie. Because that's a very bad habit you've had. Whenever the evidence gets close of your own lostness, you immediately fill your mind with a thought, raging thoughts, in order to fill up the space so you won't have to see your actual condition. Stop right where you are and see that you will have the same bad dreams tonight that you had a year ago and 20 years ago. See that there is nothing whatever in control in your life, because that is the fact of every single one of you listening to me. Then we've established something, haven't we? Oh, no, we haven't. Not as far as you're concerned. Because already, even while I've been talking with you, you have been evading. If you wouldn't evade, when you got up tomorrow morning, you would be different. And I'll give you one simple example of it. When you got up tomorrow morning and walked to the kitchen, walked to the living room or whatever, you would know where you were every second. And the only time you would ever lose it is when you're thinking, well, I better brush my teeth or turn on the coffee or whatever. You would know what you're doing at every minute you're doing it, but you can't do that, Kate, because you have no control. You are controlled by what? Well, by what you call you, for one thing. Which is simply the past. You're controlled by any vagrant thought that comes along, by any little childish impulse that comes along. Well, how do you like being controlled and victimized by what is going on inside of you? Obviously, you must be madly in love with it to have permitted it. And you must be terribly weak human beings to surrender to it. please, whatever happened to those ordinary, marvelous, exciting virtues called fighting for yourself in the right way? Whatever happened to that determination inside of you that says, I'm not going to give up. I am not going to surrender to anything that is doing this to me. A no 50 yards high, right? How come it isn't operating effectively to change your nature? I'll tell you why. Because you have refused to see your nature. Because you have the illusion of control, which simply means that on a certain mechanical level, and you're not even controlling picking up a fork at dinner, not even controlling your own movement as you walk down the aisle here. It is being done for you, and you say, I am doing it. How many times have I asked you, whenever you say the word I, word me, self, how many times have I asked you to inquire exactly who you are talking about? Now, you don't want to do this either, because it's going to put you in an awful lot of confusion. If you say, who said that? You ask someone, why did you say that? And I said, well, I said that because, and on and on. And they explain away. As a matter of fact, there is no control in any human beings, with one or two rare exceptions here on earth maybe. There's no control at all because there's no willingness to see the lack of control. Let me tell you what control is. First of all, it is a oneness. You know what oneness is? That means there's just one thing, not two things. Secondly, it's, to use the word, it's an absorption of a certain very rare individual into the flow, the stream of higher cosmic and conscious intelligence. And see, when an individual is under this flow, again, and also he has no life of his own, he has no control. Are you beginning to understand? As long as you think you have control, using your intellect, you never will have. You'll be mad, you'll be wild, and you'll be an awfully weird human being. Now, if you know you have no control, that means you're going to have to give up the illusion that you have it, which means you're going to have to give up everything that makes up you, everything that you call valuable, which is trash. You're going to have to give that up so that there is no controller of your own life, but there is control, because this is spelled with a capital C, cosmic control, cosmic command. In this life, there can be no problems, because there's no problem maker. There can be no need to solve problems. See, look at what you're doing to solve problems. And it never gets solved. There's no need to solve problems because there's none that come up. There is no you and any kind of an opposite whatever. There's no enemy. Maybe you won't like this, but I better tell you, there's also no one to love. You're going to reject that, because that's one of your last strongholds of self, of I, of ignorance, of stupidity, to say, surely I love. Well, most surely you do not, because you or I can never love anyone or anything. We don't even love our own life, and that should be obvious to you. So, oneness means that you go through your day with physical vision out in the world, and nothing you see can cause you dismay, because there's no hoper there. There's no expectation. There's no pathetic little child looking up and around, looking for a different kind of a mama and a papa, a different kind of strong man to save you. You're not looking for support from anyone. See, there's no, when you look for support, there's two things, isn't there? There's no oneness there at all. There's two things. Poor, pathetic little you, looking out for someone who is stronger than you. You're never going to find him. You have never in your life, and you never will, find another human being who is stronger or wiser than you, because there is only stupidity everywhere on both sides. The very act of looking out, which you do, hoping that that person knows the answer and hoping that he'll make decisions. The very act of looking out toward the world is an act, heaven help human beings, an act of self-abandonment. That is, abandoning your opportunity to not be you anymore. Now look at the conflict you're in over that. Oh, that sounds so nice, to not be the me that has all these poundings going on inside my head. All these fearful looking at other people. Wouldn't it be nice to not be the painful me? And all the time you're saying this, there's another voice that's sending up a warning, isn't it? Because you're afraid to let go of that little child who wants someone to be stronger. Please, please listen to me. All you really have to lose is everything that is bad for you. It is not good, it is not virtuous to dwell in stupidity. Intelligence is virtuous, stupidity is evil. So to use a very common phrase, what do you have to lose by going along this path and seeing that you have no command of your own life, and seeing that you push away the evidence of your own foolishness? What do you have to lose? That bothers you an awful lot. And I know absolutely what prevents you from making the leap. You're saying, if I go ahead with all this, I won't know who I am. Don't you understand? That is the precise point of the leap, to not know who you am. That's the very idea. That's the beauty of it. You now know who you are. And the only descriptions you can put on it is wretched, lost, forlorn, searching for strength that you never find. Now, see, you are such a liar, all of you. You're such liars that you translate everything into your own terms, onto your own level. So when truth comes along, as it has tonight, truth comes along and tells you these marvelous things, this glorious news. When truth comes along, you say, that can't be true. Now, listen to this. Who is the you who says that can't be true? The you who said that is a you who doesn't want it to be true. If you can see through yourself, the problem is solved. And it is solved forever. If you can see that you're worrying over nothing, there is nothing to worry about over letting yourself go. You think there is, see who the you is who is tricking you into worry. Question. Now answer yes or no. Is worry right or wrong? You know what it is. Worry is all wrong. All right. All right, right? Will you agree with that? All right. Now, if you worry about giving up your worry, for example, if you worry about giving up all your pains and your tension and your search for someone stronger than you, if you worry about that, then that in itself is wrong. Worry is wrong, all right? Now, if you give up worry, if you give it up, then that will be doing something right, right? But you won't do that because you fear so terribly, you fear so dreadful that the person, that the worried self is the only self, and if you just drop it, you will disappear. I'll try to say it in the 5,000th different way. If you give up your worry, which is the same thing as giving you up, if you just drop that, then you, as the worrier, ceases to exist. What kind of a mind do you have that you value misery? Why do you call that life? Why do you say I better cling to that because there's nothing better? Who is telling that monstrous lie? It is something that is preventing you from going on. You want to cling to yourself? You want to keep going as you have been going? Or do you want to become truly spiritual for the first time? Where you've taken all this wisdom, the wisdom of truth, where you've taken it and you have taken the next step, which is to act on it. The dinner is set in front of you, the marvelous banquet, and you just sit there and don't take of the food, and you complain that you're hungry. The banquet is spread out before you, and you have to take it, and you have to go action toward the food the same way inwardly. Consciousness of the misery, of the shocks of the old nature, consciousness of that without resistance to the shock, consciousness of the shock without resistance to it will save you. Because you, by your own agreement in saying, that was indeed a stupid thing that I said, that I did, that I thought, that indeed was a stupid thing, because stupidity can be instantly recognized by the conflict and pain it creates inside me. Pain and stupidity are the same thing. I understand that. I will go on. I will never again defend it. I am defending my own inner hell, and I am going to stop. Oh, I tell you, there really, truly is such a thing as spiritual bravery, as spiritual virtue. It actually exists. Why don't you take advantage of it? Why don't you reach out, or rather reach up? Why don't you reach up and let your hand and your whole life be filled with something that will show you what to do with the knowledge you have accumulated. Please don't sit any longer at the banquet table and complain that you're hungry. That is stupidity. Try to find small ways or you can give yourself a little jolt over some ridiculous thing that you do. Some self-defense. How about that one? Some self-defense that you find going on inside of you, and you say, I'm ready. I don't want the pain, but I'm ready for it. I know it's going to come, and I'm simply going to drop my lie that I know what I'm doing with my life. I'm going to drop that lie and see the result of it. Let me explain as best I can with words what beauty is. Inner beauty, not the beauty of a rose or a sky. Beauty is a natural, spontaneous result of you saying, I'm going to do it regardless of the imagined results to myself. I'm going to drop that self-defense. I'm no longer going to protect myself against that accusation. I'm no longer going to run mental movies through my mind of winning over another person. I'm going to catch them and not run them anymore, just to see the result of that. Now, there's no way, believe me, ladies and gentlemen, that I can tell you what this beauty with a capital B is. I know what it is, but I can't explain it to you because it's not explainable. It is only experienceable. And it comes to you as a result of doing, listen to this, of doing something completely new. Now, look at your life today and remember what happened to you today, and you will see that nothing was new at all, was it? It was a repetition, the same old experiences, the same old tremblings. Nothing new happened at all. The same old stuff. The new, which comes by welcoming it, the new is instantly recognizable by you by, listen, by a different kind of a sense, not with the eyes or the ears. It is recognized inwardly by a spiritual sense. And as I've told you before, your first glimpse of a truly new, truly spiritual experience, your first glimpse of that, and you will suddenly go silent. That silence is a very holy place, a completely spiritual place, like a crown in a jungle of some kind, set apart right in the middle of all your other atrocities that's going on inside of you. It will be this pure place, and you will know it, and you will want more and more to live there, to dwell there. You won't be able to help yourself, thankfully. You'll want to go to this pure place right in the middle of the jungle and stay there. And no matter many times you're lured out by the wolves and the weasels out there and in there, no matter times you're lured out, you'll sooner or later catch yourself and say, I want to go back. I want to go home. This is God operating in your life to take you home, to bring you there. And as a further spiritual experience, you'll find yourself staying home for longer periods of time and wandering for longer periods of time and wandering for shorter periods of time. Want it? Yes. Take a break. There was a reporter who was in search of a story. And in looking around, he heard of a place called Awakeland. And it was the first he ever heard of it, so he decided to investigate. So he got in his car, drove a long ways out to this land called Awakeland. And as he drove into town, he noticed as he got to the outskirts of it, driving in, that there was a very bright and broad red line on the ground that obviously went completely around the village, the country. So he crossed over the red line, drove into town, pulled over and saw the first man on the sidewalk that he saw, and he asked him, "Sir, I'm a reporter, and I've heard about this land called a Wakeland, and I'd like to write a story about it. Could you tell me who I should see?" And the stranger said, "Sure. You should see the mayor himself. He lives down the street there. Go 2 blocks down and 1 to the right, and you'll see a little sign in front of his house that he's the mayor. Go in, and he'll give you all the information you want." So the reporter said, "Fine, thank you, sir," and drove off, went down, saw the house, went up, knocked on the door, and a man came to the door. Pretty soon the reporter knew that he was talking to the mayor, who was a very, very friendly, affable gentleman. He said, "Come on in, reporter, and ask any questions you want." So they went into the living room, and as they sat down, the reporter said, "Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, but if I'm interrupting you at home, I'd just soon wait till you could see at your office if it's more convenient for you." The mayor said, "Oh, this is my office, the only one I have." And the reporter said, I don't quite understand. I don't see a desk. I don't see any legal papers around. Already I'm a bit bewildered. Could you explain it to me?" And the mayor said, "Oh, very easy, Mr. Reporter. We have no crime. We have no fighting among neighbors. We have no taxes. We have nothing of the type of life that you experience in the world from which I know you came out there. As a matter of fact, Mr. Reporter, I have practically nothing to do at all. Well, I send out weather reports every once in a while to farmers and orchardists who need it to make their harvest right. But I really don't have much to do." So, of course, the reporter was getting pretty intrigued now about what he'd run into. Here is a mayor who had practically nothing to do because there's no crime, none of the usual strife that he found out in his own world. So he asked the mayor further questions, which was answered. And the reporter then said, "Now, there is one specific question I'd like to ask. When I came into town, I noticed a big, broad red line that apparently goes around the whole town here. What's that all about?" The mayor said, "Well, that's very significant, and you'd have to see it for yourself to understand what it's all about. So if you like, we can go on out and I'll show you what it's all about." So they went out to the edge of the town, which wasn't very far because it was a very small town. And when they got to the red line that did go all around town, the reporter said, "Okay, what's it all about?" The mayor said, "Now watch. You watch what happens." So they stood there on the inside of the line and they looked outside. And what happened just within a few minutes was that a gang of thugs came along, were walking along outside the red line, fighting with each other, throwing rocks and snarling at each other, battling. And the reporter noticed something that came by. Have you ever had something that went by the outside of your mind, sort of a thirdary thought, not even a secondary one, while you're concentrating on the first one? Well, the reporter saw something happening while they were fighting each other that made him a little more intelligent than he was before. And what he saw, and you listen to this because this is very profound, what he saw was while these thugs were fighting each other, that there's a lot of food all around on the ground, boxes of food and sacks. And all that food was being destroyed in the battle. Are you making a connection? It's very simple. You make the connection. All that food that people need, practical items, was being destroyed by the battling, but they didn't notice it. And they kept waiting there a little longer. And pretty soon, 2 or 3 generals came along with medals all over them, and their caps and their swords and their rifles, and they strutted around giving orders to privates, yelling vicious orders at them, attack and so on. Pretty soon some other men came along and women came along, all dressed up, very sophisticated, and they were carrying their drinks with them and their tall hats and looking fancy. And the reporter said, "You know what? This this describes where I came from. Meyer said, of course it is. This is called the sleeping territory. And all people outside of the red line are utterly mad. They appear to make sense. Look, did you see that man over there with all the college degrees? See all those people who appear to know what they're doing, giving orders to other people? I want you to know, Mr. Reporter, that they're absolutely mad. But I also want you to know that the people inside of Wakeland, as you saw, did you see any fighting? You didn't see anyone fighting? See anyone grasping for anything? Did you see anyone tricking each other inside? You didn't, but look what they're doing out there. And of course, the reporter's fascination was tripled by now. The mayor said, this is just the beginning. Here's the most interesting part of it, Mr. Reporter, and you can put it down in your story, and when you go back to your land, you can put it in. And by the way, Mr. Reporter, when you run the story, nobody's going to pay any attention to it. They're not going to understand it. And if they don't understand it at immediate glance, they're bored with trying to understand it. But anyway, here it is. And the mayor said, now watch this one man outside the line, out in what we call sleeping territory. Watch this one man. And so the reporter looked, and there's one man out there, middle-aged man, and he was wandering around in a daze, blank look in his face, and he had a bottle of drink in his hand. He was taking a drink, and he was getting a little drunker all the time. And every once in a while, he'd pick up a rock and throw it at someone else outside the line. And he was muttering to himself, and he looked outwardly, he looked what he was inwardly. He hadn't shaved for 10 days, and his hair was all mussed up. He began to look like a bum, beginning to degenerate. The inner was beginning to show itself outwardly. But the mayor said, now I want you to watch this man. It's fascinating, if you will. So they both watched, and the man who's been drinking and cursing started to walk toward the red line, toward the inner city. And he kept walking and kept walking, kept walking. And he actually crossed the line, and he got inside it. Everything changed immediately. He straightened up. He threw the bottle down. The expression on his face changed. You could tell there's a different human being standing there inside the line, inside a Wakeland. The reporter said, now watch, keep watching, don't miss a thing. This is marvelous what is happening. So the reporter kept watching and entranced by it. The man who had changed his nature, all of a sudden, he began to sag a little bit, and he staggered outside the line again and went back right where he was before. The mayor said, keep watching. The man went back again, straightened up, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You understand the application so far? You fall asleep, don't you? For a little bit, you come across the line and you're different. You actually are different. Your nature is different. You see things different. You know where you are, don't you, for a little bit? You suddenly remember where you used to be. Remember last night the point was brought out that you can remember if you were when you're in the lunatic asylum, you don't know you're there. You don't understand it. You think you're in the right place. But only when you get outside can you look back and see where you have been, and you know without question that you were mad. Same applies to this. The point, of course, is this. We have to find some way to keep ourselves inside the line instead of going to sleep. Once you do it, you're gone. You have no choice but to behave according to the nature, the characteristics of how everyone behaves when you're outside the line. Throwing rocks. How many rocks have you thrown in the last week in your own mind? And do you know that you also throw them equally at yourself? Self-condemnation. Throw a rock at yourself, it's exactly the same thing at throwing at someone else, and they, of course, will be equal. There is such a thing as method. There is such a thing as technique. And at the start, it starts with you beginning to say, now, I have to start where I am, exactly where I am. With a confused mind, I have to start with that because that's all there is. I have to be out in sleeping territory out there. But I will see the truth in the promise that I can start exactly where I am and begin to change what I am. Here it is. When you've suddenly staggered and crossed the line and you're out in that dazed condition out there, you can do the following. You might even want to write this phrase down. It is called self-comment. This is beginning to use all of your mind and spirit right. Self-comment means while you're in a state of sleep, but something inside of you has been over the line just a little, and you're trying to get that to work for you. You know, you were inside awake land for just a little bit. You saw something later. And you're trying to activate that while you're out in the sleeping territory. So, that right while you're reaching down for a stone, a hostility, right while you're reaching down for it, the rock of hostility, anger, is down there on the ground. And you reach for it, and you actually pick it up, and you're drawing it up. Halfway, you make a self-comment. And what it is, hey, I have a rock in my hand. That rock is an offensive weapon. I have picked up that rock millions of times in my life, and every time I do, I pick it up and I hurl it at someone else. I know by a certain psychological law that someone else out there at whom I throw the rock is going to throw a rock back at me, and I am going to get hurt. You stop it halfway and you begin to understand what you're doing, and you'll understand also a little deeper than that, which is your great love for having other people throw rocks at you. Do you understand that you do love being persecuted? You do love other people glaring at you. So self-comment consists of you when you're wandering out there, right in the middle of any thought, any action, any dejection, any unwise and unnecessary action at all, right in the middle of it, you suddenly stop and comment on what you see yourself doing. So that world out there can sometimes provide the necessary shock for you to do this. See, and it takes a shock, which has a lot of emotion to it. It takes a shock to get through us because our mind is so asleep it can't be shocked. It's too big of a wall. I'll give you an example of this, and we'll get close to home now, all right? All of you think of some time, well, let me ask the question first. How many of you have ever behaved foolishly in your life? All right. You know, you went out that party, or you went with that man or with that woman, or in your own home or in school. You know, it doesn't make a difference where we are. We take our idiotic self with us. And you did something or said something, and all of a sudden there was complete silence in the room. You were going to overwhelm the world with your brilliance, right? It didn't turn out as you thought, did it? Is vanity leading the way? Thought, I am going to affirm my magnificence. But because it was delusion, because it was stupid, instead of getting the acclaim, people stared at you quizzically. And you caught them staring at you, didn't you? You caught them with a little question mark in their eyes. What's up with him? Or maybe they looked at you pathetically. And you, seeing their expression, all of a sudden, you, if you did, you had an opportunity to make a right self-comment. Now, to do this means that right in the middle of the embarrassment, the pain, the groan, there I go again, being my usual stupid self. Look, right in the middle of that must be interrupted with this bit of light intelligence that you acquired when you stepped over the line inside Awakened Land just for a moment. You were able to introduce that into the overall shame. And you can do this with past shames, things that you did bad in the past, stupid things. You can do that now. You can do it today, anytime you want. Right in the middle of the memory coming back of the experience, the memory is mental, it's emotional, the foolish act. It's mental, emotional, and very, very active, isn't it? Go ahead, do it now. Think of a foolish, stupid, shameful act. Go ahead. It is not harmful to do it. It may be painful, but it is not harmful. Go ahead. I'll give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. If I wait too long, there's too long a pause on the talk, and people wondering what's happening. So, right in the middle of the emotional churning, you add your comment based on knowledge, based on a wish to understand, based on a wish to escape the pain in the right way. And in the right way means that you are not going to run from one end of the jungle to the other, calling it out of the jungle. But you're going to understand that only by going through this whole process of commenting correctly upon it will you introduce the power that is stronger than identified memory, that is stronger than your overwhelming emotional desire to be and to always be you above all else. Now, you are not stronger than you. You do not want to change. You want to stay in sleeping territory. That part of you can have no desire even to go over the line into the awakened land. And you must, sooner or later, in your inner quest, understand that helplessness and hopelessness is an absolute necessity if you are going to have new life and true life. Not the helplessness and hopelessness of the intellect where the I is born and thrives. But try to see the difference now. But a very calm and relaxed understanding and an attitude that when you are helpless in the right way, you don't feel in despair about it at all. You simply understand how you have been deceived by your old contrived nature, which always lies to you and says, I will do it for you. I will get rid of the pain. I will change you. You understand that it can't do anything but be itself. Now, with that understanding, I can't describe to you how beautiful it is, how relaxing it is, what an utterly new planet it is to live on. I can't describe to you how you will be different when you simply know, when you simply understand that all you have to do is to do nothing. When you do nothing, something utterly different happens. It doesn't happen to you, not your old nature. It is a displacement of the old nature. You cannot understand this intellectually, and I've told you this many times. You can understand the facts about, but the experience, the transformation, is quite another thing. So when the next time you find yourself wandering out there, in any kind of a difficulty at all, anything that causes you pain, that causes you discomfort, make comments on it. And the very fact that you remember to comment and say, now, for example, this pain I feel is not my real nature, and I don't want it to be. I am no longer going to love being a madman. I am no longer going to love my tears. I'm no longer going to love anything that causes me any kind of a disturbance at all. I'm going to find out experimentally and personally what it means to not be insane anymore. You give yourself that kind of a tough talk, and I will guarantee you'll get some resistance to it. And then you keep watching that resistance. And over. You'll see yourself wandering back and forth over the red line. And remember very, very much that when you're on the outside of the line in the state of sleep, you do not know where you are, and you do not know what you're doing. So be very careful when you're out there to not let imagination trick you like it does billions of people. Every leader, quote marks, in society of any kind, religious leaders, social leaders, all leaders are governed by the imagination that they can lead, and they can't even lead themselves out of the sleeping territory into the awakened land, can they? Now listen to me. This technique of self-comment, of watching yourself, of being alert, of looking around, keeping your head up even physically, sooner or later, your old nature is going to make one mistake too many. Write that down. It's going to make one mistake too many, and you're going to get what you want, which is a revelation of who you've always been that you thought was so nice. It's going to be a revelation of where you can go. What I'm saying is, we're so asleep, so entrapped out there. You keep after that. 15 years, make it 30 years. Make it 3 calls a day. Sooner or later, your old nature is going to make a big mistake, and you're going to see through the whole thing and find out what you want to find out. Fight to stay awake for 4 seconds, then 5. Take a break.